Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to this week's CodeX group meeting. Now I'm picking up some feedback. We have two presentations here for you all today, which promise to be very interesting, and I think we'll have great discussion. We have Professor Adam Candiap of Michigan State University here with us today, along with Sherrod Blankner. They will tell us about their FCC Explorer project. And then we have Catherine Crow, the founder and CEO of DIGITOry Legal, who will speak right after Adam and Sherrod. So before we get started with the presentations, I wanted to see if anyone in the group had any updates or news to share. And folks online, I hope you can hear us. Can you give us a sign to let us know if you hear us? Anyone?
Is it on mute? Yes.
Yes, we can. Okay, people.
Yep.
Fantastic. All right. Anyone online has any news to share? No. All right. Well, then let's turn it over to Adam and Sherrod.
Okay. Can you hear us?
We can. Yes, we can.
Okay. Do I need to be on mute, or do I need to have that off?
Your mic should be off, actually, because we can get you through
Okay.
Get the PowerPoint?
Yep. No.
Okay, so this is a project with Sherrod Blankner from Fleebus Consulting, and Dan Katz and Michael Bomarito have been working on this as well, and we want to give them credit for their help. So the administrative state overwhelms. There are almost 1 million pages of regulatory output in the Federal Register every year, and how can we possibly understand it without being crushed? And I promise that will be the last corny graphic presentation. Okay. See, we're being crushed. Most legal analytics have relatively small corpora. The ones that I'm most familiar with, because I guess Michigan State has a really good quantitative political science department that spends all its time thinking about it, is the Supreme Court decisions database, which is quite extensive, but nevertheless relatively small amounts of data. There are not that many Supreme Court opinions, and there are not that many briefs. But administrative agencies produce massive amounts of paper, and data analysis help. Not a trivial problem. So just by way of comparison, this was a low year, but in 2016, 2015, there were 329 statutes passed by Congress, all of 723 total pages. At the same time, there were over 3,400 new rules with page lengths of 24,000. So this is a data problem. It goes to deep questions about accountability, transparency in government, and really it's a data cloud that hangs over the administrative state. So let's get started. This is one step to see, can we make this whole process more transparent? And we're going to start with the Federal Communications Commission. Why? Well, because I study it and I work there and I practiced before it. So, we have to start there. It's an independent agency. That means that unlike other large agencies, it's a vote of partisan commissioners. So there's 3 members generally of the party of the president and 2 members of the opposing party, and they vote on all major actions. And luckily for us, most of the agency's work is done through what's called rulemaking, meaning the agency proposes rules, and then it has comments, it has meetings, it has reports, and then it produces a final rule, which has the force of law. Most of these records, virtually all of them actually, are on a database, an electronic database, the electronic comment filing system, which can be downloaded. Yeah. And so, nonetheless, that's the challenge. So there's this database, electronic comment filing system, and I don't know if you've read about the fake comments that were filed in the network neutrality proceeding, but the electronic filing of
Fake comments.
fake comments,
Or
From Russia.
robot.
robot
yeah.
comments, and also just mass mobilization, where people who associated with various political groups will say, push here to submit a comment, and so they'll just send out all these emails or texts, and people just push them, and they're the same text. So you see from that graph, and this is actually the first quantification of the comments. There's been this exponential cycle. Now, most of them are meaningless. No one pays attention to them. But nonetheless, it is a data challenge of how to parse this out. So in our database, we have virtually all of this. But we're not about to start on 20 million records. So where to start? Okay, so Sherry's from the private sector, and she sent me this template of how you're supposed to do a PowerPoint, and there's always supposed to be a person with a problem that you're supposed to solve. So here's Hank Biddle, and he's an associate at a major DC law firm with a big practice, and he's staring out the window saying, I wish I could keep track of who's meeting with all the FCC commissioners, because I could impress the partner I'm working for, and I could really understand who has the ear to power. And I'm wondering if data could help me out here. Well, luckily for him, every time the agency meets, anyone in the agency, a commissioner or staff person meets with a member of the public in an ongoing proceeding, there has to be a letter that memorializes that meeting. They're called ex parte letters. And they just say, Ken Biddle met with Chairman Pi on so-and-so date, and they talked about X, Y, and Z. And they're all put in the database, which is a administrative law issue just to make sure there's transparency, but it does have the benefit of showing who has the ear of power. And so rather than start on the millions and millions of comments, most of them are probably created by bots, we thought, let's just start with this, 140,000 ex-parte letters, and see what we can come up with. And then this was the part of the project that I said, sure, this is your job.
Okay, so I'm the data scientist working with Adam. We know each other from undergrad. We went to Yale together many, many years ago. So we worked on this partially for fun and partially for profit someday. So let me talk about some of the issues with the data. So the data is in JSON form from the ECFS API. And at first it seemed like it was going to be great and easy just to pull it all. But so the letters themselves have been OCR'd over time. The new letters, the latest API has changed slightly, and it's clear that the PDFs are coming in as PDFs that are readable, so they have the actual text. So it's much better in the last 2 or 3 years. But the old data is scanned OCR, and the text is kind of crappy, so it's not great. The other issue we ran into is the JSON API changed 3 times, which was a headache for writing the parser. It worked up till 2015, and then it kind of fell apart, and we had to rewrite it. So that was an issue. The other issue is, besides the actual letter that they file, they have to enter metadata into the ECFS system, and people enter it inconsistently. Like, they don't remember. I mean, obviously, just being human, they don't remember that. When they filed in 2015, they said they were Henry Smith and not Henry J. Smith, and they put a typo and all that sort of thing. So we had to deal with the data issues, and we made a cleaner to clean some of the data. So we're going to show you that. So what we used was, or what I used is the extractor was written in Python, and Adam had heard about this NLTK parser. So we used that to parse out from the letters all proper nouns. So these are entities, so it recognizes anything with several words strung together with capitals, or it recognizes acronyms, so it'll pull all those out. So hopefully, if the data is good, you can pull out all the names and all the entities. So that's very helpful. So we wrote a searchable website. It's written in Python 2 using Django and the REST framework API for the backend. We used MySQL, we used AWS Linux, and a lot of jQuery for that. So this is we're going to show you our product now. It's the FCC Explorer. So I'm going to go over to the...
We usually have a drum roll, but...
Yes. Can you guys see my screen, or do I have to reshare that?
Reshare that.
Okay. Let me start that. Looking very, very professional here. Okay. Okay, so can you see that now? Okay, so this is our production site. So you come here and you can learn things about the relationships between people. So let's start with we're going to search for, the first person I'm going to search for real quick is just to show you someone with lots of results, is the commissioner of the FCF, DIGITORY. So I'm going to see where he showed up in the letters. And he's going to have lots of results. So he's showed up 2,600 times. So you can tell he's a player. You know, he's obviously a player because he's a commissioner, but you can get a sense of how big of a player somebody is from their results. So if we take someone who's just an average, this is just a person we picked out of this guy.
Of course, average and Adam names that come together.
So Adam Krinsky, here's an example. So if someone said to you, you should use Adam Krinsky, he knows everything about the FCC, you could come to this database and say, well, actually, how many times has Adam Krinsky met with the FCC? And then you can look at the individual, so it tells you the submission, the proceeding, and some of the other proper nouns. And you can delve in deeper into these and look at the actual text. So this is an example of the text that Adam Krinsky, he was a counsel to the company CTIA.
It's the cellular phone trade industry.
So CTIA was meeting to talk about this proceeding, which was promoting technical solutions to combat contraband wireless devices used in correctional facilities. So these are the types of letters that we parse. So this is an example of a good letter. So it's coming from an actual digital file and it wasn't OCR'd. So you can see the whole letter here. And also it shows you all the people who were at the meeting. So these people were from the FCC, the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau. These people were from CTIA, and all these people will be parsed out by the parser. So you can see that Adam Krinsky was their counsel. And so you could additionally click on other people here it parses them all out, and you can search them. You can see like Kara. So Kara, for example, shows up 7 times, so she must be new to this. She's very recent. So you can see that she's a newbie. So let's go back to Adam Krinsky. So
and your data set may only submissions from the outside world to the FCC, or letters to the FCC.
Yes, letters to the FCC.
Well, yeah, I mean letters that memorialize these face-to-face meetings. So these letters are all.
So letters have to say who was in the meeting.
Right. It's just
what they talked about.
This is all. These are not just people from anywhere in the world. These are letters that memorialize face-to-face meetings. So what we're doing is a record of actual face-to-face influence.
Oh, okay. So it's not a public consultation.
No, this is
right.
And that's the balance the agency did. Rather than have completely secret meetings where they just gave away everything to the regulated industries, they say, okay, we'll be transparent. We'll meet them separately, but we'll file these little things that no one will be able to read because they'll all be in PDF form and they'll be impossible to parse until Sharon came along.
Well, that's actually one of the issues is, while it appears that anyone can comment, it's actually certain people who are actually doing the meetings and making the policy.
We'll
go into
that.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So let's compare 2 people together. So we want to see Adam Krinsky. How many times did he meet with Commissioner Clyburn? So it shows you that he met 5 times with her in 2011. So it was a while ago. And we can also, this is one of the interesting features of the tool is you can additionally, when you narrow down the search, you can start talking about the topics that they've talked about. So these are the biggest hits on entity names that came out of this meetings between Adam Krinsky and Mignon Clyburn. So you can see that obviously they were talking about Verizon. So some interesting things happened about these people. So Adam Krinsky is from Wilkinson Barker now, so that comes up. All the people that you see, Angela Giancarlo, Louis Peretz, Tamara Price, they're either lobbyists or FCC people. So Tamara Price used to work at the FCC, but she now works at Verizon. So there's like a go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So she's my old boss, actually. So, no, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But yes, so you're able to sort of see, well, what is his area of expertise? It's public safety, and of course, it's Verizon Wireless, and that sort of comes out very clearly. Should we go to Powell?
Yeah.
Okay. So Michael Powell, he was the son of Colin Powell. He was chair when I was there, and the thing that I worked on for like most of my practicing career is intercarrier compensation, which is this absurd issue about telephone companies paying things to telephone companies. So put that in, and
It didn't take it.
oh, it didn't. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there you go. And so you get these sort of micro relationships, then you get these bigger relationships. So you're able to go and see what Adam Krinsky's up to, and see his world. But if you look at what is Powell's world when it comes to this concept? Well, what comes up? NCTA is the cable company lobbyist firm. That's Jennifer McKee. She's a lobbyist there. That's James Assey. Let's see, clicks up. Yeah, James Assey. He's also a lobbyist there. And then, how do I get back?
Click back.
Sorry. And then,
Oh wait, sorry.
Yeah.
One moment.
One moment,
please. Having a moment.
So, and then you'll see over here, NCTA, and this is National Telecommunications Cable Association. So the NCTA was pretty much whispering into Michael's ear about this concept. Where do you think Powell worked after he left the FCC? What do you think?
Trick question.
Good trick question. Exactly. It's not a trick question. And so these deeper relationships become immediately apparent. So should we go? Sure.
Yeah. How are we doing on time?
Yeah. How are we doing on time?
Good. So you have about 12 minutes.
Okay.
But it'd be great if we had some time for questions.
Okay.
We'll just
show you real quick. You can also search by the metadata. So, sorry, this autocomplete's a little slow right now, but you can search by filer or law firm. You can see how many, this is not searching the text, it's searching the metadata. So you can see which submissions this law firm was on. And then you can see also, this guy's going to come back up a lot in our presentation. Sorry, just give it a second. I don't know. I did something that made it slow. So the chief author at the FCC, or the most prolific author over time, is John Nakahata, who's submitted over 2,000 filings. So you can see that kind of thing. The last thing I want to show you real quick.
We probably should go ahead.
Okay, I know. I just want to show the corner real quick.
Okay.
Again, those filings, just again for clarifications, those are the outside parties that have a live meeting with the commissioner.
Yeah, exactly.
They are obliged to actually then send a letter that memorializes the meeting.
Right.
Yes.
And with the main kind of
Right,
points.
exactly. And as we'll show, it does create sort of who is the regulatory culture of this of the whole of the FCC.
Is this specific to the FCC or all other agencies?
Well, about 4 or 5 of the big agencies have this practice, but they're all different. This is one of the problems with studying the Ministry of Law is that all of the practices are different, and they're all very sui generis.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is just a technical point about data cleaning, but can you see this? You can see that we wrote a cleaner because you can see that John Nakahata submitted, when he filed, he submitted slightly different things over time. So one was J Nakahata, he left the period off the T, the N ran into the T. So we wrote a cleaner, and we could say, use this main one, John T. Nakahata, as the parent and attach all the children, and then it cleaned it, and then they're all the same. So that was how we handled that. So we could go back to the presentation.
Yeah, and that's, it's a huge problem that people who do, let's say, cases don't have. I mean, the regulatory stuff, it's huge and very, very complicated. So Shar talked a bit about this. I mean, you're able to use this to get metrics as far as lawyers' expertise. So to go on, we're beating on poor Adam Krinsky, I don't know him, but so those numbers represent proceedings, which are sort of topical groupings of FCC procedures, and they're all wireless proceedings. So you're able to see those are the proceedings that he's involved in, those are the people he files with. You're able to get a real sense of who these people are, and also deeper, more personal relationships. So this is these are our top filers of the FCC. These are the masters of the FCC regulatory universe, and they're different. So look at their party leanings. So John Nakahata goes both ways. He goes Dem, he goes ours, pretty evenly. But you notice that, Henry Goldberg, mostly Dems, close relationship with Adelstein. And this is not trivial things, because if you're hiring people as a lawyer in DC, you're hiring them for their contacts. And these are ways of verifying whether or not, they're full of balls. Oh, yeah, Adelstein and I are best friends. We play squash 3 times a week. Or whether or not this is real. Then we see authors that go the other way. This is this guy is clearly leans R. Okay. From a scholarly perspective, because that's what I'm interested in writing boring articles, is the FCC Explorer I think is actually could become something for practice. But I'm interested in learning something about the culture of regulation. And what's so fascinating is if you look at who's meeting, these are our top filers, top meetings with Dems and Rs, and if you just look at it, just the highly statistical value eyeball, it's all the same friggin' people, it's this world, very small world, and that's how policy is made in this country. It's not particularly democratic, but it's a very elitist. Now, there are idiosyncrasies. We'll talk about Chairman Frithcott-Roth afterwards if you want to, but we can skip him. Okay, so next step. So the FCC Explorer was a first step. So this one issue about face-to-face influence and using a tool that could be useful for practitioners. The next step, it's something bigger. This is Marcos Cruz. He's a junior scholar. He wants to do empirical legal studies. He's overwhelmed by data. What we'd like to do next is take all of the data, all of the comments, all the written comments, as well as records of meetings, mostly written comments, and then use just plain old textual similarity metrics on the millions of documents to look at the FCC orders to measure influence in the same way that the Supreme Court people look at the briefs to look at influence on decisions. And so in that way, we'll actually be coming up with legitimate metrics to measure regulatory influence. And so this is our weird corporate ending. What are people saying about FCC Explorer? Well, there you go. Alan Associate loves it. Rennie Reader does it, and someone who's the future of ELS. So there we are.
Very cool. Well, thank you. Very cool. What questions do people have?
I'll start out. I think this is really cool. I'm wondering, I thought of Scopus Labs, which does predict.gov, right? And, or predict.gov.
Yeah.
And are you thinking, so are you thinking that there's any way that you could, I don't know if this is at the predictive stage yet, but it certainly seems descriptive. And if you combine it with more data sets, it could get there. Because they predict model. Legislation, right. Could you predict rulemaking?
There is a predictive model in here. We're working on it. It's much harder because Congress has clear, transparent markers for when legislation comes. There's committee meeting, there's committee markup, it gets introduced. The FCC is kind of a black box. So the chairman decides when something meets. So it's much harder to predict. But there are models that you can look to, and actually, interestingly, frequency of meetings is very predictive of whether or not the FCC will act. So that's right. That is,
interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Very interesting. And so it's interesting. So is your main interest in better understanding how the FCC works and how decisions get made there, and maybe even predicting it at some point? Or is it in coming up with a new kind of data science-driven mechanisms that will help us to understand the administrative state better, or is it both? Oh.
I think it's both.
Yeah, I mean, I just enjoyed working with the data. Adam's the one who's got the vision of destroying the country by with the SEC Explorer.
Right. No, I mean, my public choice theory, sympathies are showing. I mean, one thing is we want to demonstrate the influence of agencies on regulatory output, because people think, oh, of course it happens, but no one ever quantifies it, and that will be a great thing to do.
Yeah.
But also, we're looking for a predictive model that practitioners could use to help understand this. And something like the FCC Explorer too there's a transparency element. People pay a lot of money to lobbyists to tell them who's meeting with the chairman about this and that issue.
Yeah.
If you're able to put the data out there, it does have a democratizing effect, and that's also why we're interested in doing it. Is because citizens will be able to figure out what really is going on, as opposed to the ridiculous pantomime of we're submitting comments, we're affecting policy.
Well, it's interesting because they just came out with this ruling against net neutrality, but there were 20 million comments that were mostly pro-net neutrality. So I guess at some point, it's like, at what point does the voice of the people overwhelm the... Is it really the people?
That's a very fair question.
Like, why does he get to vote that way?
Well, that's why they get to vote that way, because, really, that's who they're really listening to. I think that's part of what the model is saying is that if you really want to know who's influencing and who has their ear, well, they have their ear. No one's looking at the comments, trust me.
So going back to this kind of begs the question, does a similar kind of formal record requirement exist for people who meet with their Congress people?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't think so. Probably because you have a right to petition under the Constitution. The reason why we have this letter is this horrible story about it's a case, HBO, where several commissioners were pictured in essentially having drinks with cable leaders in hotel room, and it was considered scandalous. So they said, okay, if you're going to drink in hotel rooms with regulated parties, you have to write a letter. And so that's but it says that's the only reason why you have the letter. So,
Great. Anyone online have a question? You have to unmute yourself so we can hear you, or use the chat function. And just one final question, if I may. So this sounds like you want to bring more transparency, and this is just great. This is a really cool project. But you said there might be commercial applications too. You said even for a law firm, it might be interesting to see. Or for a client, it might be interesting to see if that law firm has really that much cloud.
Right.
It's not public right now. We could put a paywall on it and say, you have to pay, whatever. If you want to do a query, it's...
So you're not, okay, so you're also you're not ruling out that possibility of this becoming a venture.
Right. I think that, right now we could do very detailed analyses on any, take those big 50 top FCC lawyers. We could do detailed analysis on who they meet with. Okay, that's one thing. But also take a look at all their comments and then project them into the orders and just do a simple sort of, these textual analysis to see, did your points of view really get into the commission orders?
Yeah.
That would be relatively, we could easily do custom consulting reports like that. I just, now that Sherry...
You do have to eat.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Right, exactly. And so that's something we certainly could do.
Yeah.
And so the answer is yes.
The approach is great, and I think it's a really cool project, and it can probably be scaled into other agencies.
Yeah.
And anything's you could do so many things like what you just said. It's like just seeing what kind of language winds up in what final orders, or that's That's very interesting. So yeah, very cool project. Really appreciate you coming in
Thank you.
and presenting to us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks again. So, okay, well, let's turn it over to Catherine and DIGITORY Legal.
All right, let's see if I can make the technology happen here.
Okay, you might have to, I don't know, share it, might have to, well, you close your computer, so, but you may have to unshare it.
Did I unshare? I'm sorry. I thought I did. Am I still sharing? No. Sorry.
Yeah, that might have done it, actually.
Yikes.
It's okay. Are you in the Zoom thing here? Yeah,
All right.
there you go. And start. Does it say start? Yeah, and then you can, yeah.
Okay. Is anybody seeing,
So just click this and then say, it's weird. Or whichever one you want. Is it that one?
is that working?
Okay, here we go.
Aha!
Okay.
All right, so that's actually the most anxiety. Am I
Yes,
starting my video?
exactly.
Should I hit later or start my video? We're gonna.
It's working.
Okay.
It's showing.
All right.
Oh, do you want to show yourself? Oh.
No, I definitely do not want to show myself. So, thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem.
And my apologies for coughing through the presentation. I really hope not to do that as I'm talking. Thank you, Roland, very much for inviting me here today. Really appreciate it. I'm Catherine Crow. I'm the CEO of DIGITORY Legal. DIGITORY Legal is focused on the business side of law and specifically helping law firms and legal departments be as successful as possible in a modern legal market. And what I mean by a modern legal market is a buyer's market that is moving more and more to alternative fee arrangements and budget-based pricing, even for complex matters. So if I can make this work. Oh my goodness, PowerPoint and I. All right, so a little bit about our background before I launch into what we're doing and why. I am a lawyer by trade. I've now been floating around the legal profession, the legal industry for 25 years. 17 of those I was a practicing litigator, first at Simpson Thacher and Bartlett in New York, then a founding member of the Simpson Thacher Palo Alto office. And then I moved to Orrick, Harrington, Sutcliffe, where I was a partner for many years and trial counsel for one of the firm's largest litigation clients. But there was nothing technical in that background. So thankfully, I have one of the best CTOs out there. Sean Cunningham has been a Silicon Valley startup presence for over 20 years. He was the CTO of such successful startups as Flutter.com, the first and largest worldwide online betting system that was later purchased by Betfair. His long-term partner in development serves as our VP of engineering, and that's Stan Mazhara. And we have been very strategic in choosing advisors who focus expertise in certain areas, specifically AI, Pankaj Chowdhury, data analytics in law, and that's Patrick Fuller, and scaling a startup to a large company, and that's Don Smith, the former CIO of Responsys, helped scale that from a startup to a $1.3 billion company. So what we do, I'm about to use the prediction word. We do legal cost prediction and management. And ultimately, we're helping you understand what your legal costs are, what your legal costs should be, and why, through data, through industry trends. But ultimately, the goal here is to help law firms and legal departments evolve, help them move off of the addiction to the billable hour model. And I don't actually tell everybody that because that's disruptive, but that's ultimately what we're trying to help people get to. So before we...
Wait, let's see the bathrooms.
Yikes.
Oh, here, just click up there.
Oh, thank goodness you're there.
That's what I always say when I join.
Oh, I previewed my whole Game of Thrones thing. So the problem, why are we doing what we're doing? So as you can see from the 80s genre, this is an old problem, the 80s movie reference. I'm really showing my age right now. So the problem is an old problem that has a new urgency, and that is that hourly billing coupled with comp structures that incentivize inefficiency have made law a money pit. And clients are really tired of paying for bills they didn't expect and don't understand. And for law firms, having been in this billable hour model for decades, it's difficult to move off of it, and because project-based pricing requires a laser focus on efficiency, project planning, project management, and most importantly, an understanding of what your costs are. And that last part is a lot more difficult than you would think for law firms, because in law, billing data is very, very poor. It is dirty, and it is not very useful. And so that's one of the hurdles to getting off of this addiction to billable hours. So I said that this is an, yikes. All right. Okay, so back to the Game of Thrones. This is an old problem that has taken on a new urgency, and that urgency corresponds with the meteoric rise of legal procurement and legal operations. These are two professions that barely existed before 2015 and are now the most powerful forces of change in the legal industry. And these are business professionals whose mission it is to apply business principles to law. And the tools they are using to get there are alternative fee arrangements that gives them predictability that they need for their budgets and forecasts, competitive RFPs, that request for proposals that is driving the cost of work down, and data-driven purchasing. And what I mean by that is the decision of who to hire has become a lot more about numbers and a lot less about relationships. Now this is an evolution that is happening right now at large corporations. This is a smattering of some large corporate entities that have moved a lot of their significant work to alternative fees. I'm going to spend a little time just on two of them, Microsoft and GlaxoSmithKline, because their programs really represent what is happening out there in the market today and what this change is really about. So starting with Microsoft. Microsoft announced in August a new strategic outside counsel program. Their program, according to their press announcements, will move 90% of their work from hourly billing to alternative fee arrangements. What's interesting as well is not only are they doing that, but they announced who their panel was. And this panel represent 13 of the most prestigious law firms out there in the world today, including Simpson, Thacher, and Orrick. So what this means is we're talking about the high value stuff. It is being bid out for RFP. So once you've qualified for that panel, it's like a celebrity death match competing on price. Now, this program raised the profile of another program that looks like it's modeled off of, and that is GlaxoSmithKline's. GlaxoSmithKline's alternative fee arrangement program, one of the most successful out there and also documented in the Harvard Business Review. What they did around the 2013-14 timeframe is move almost 90% of their work to alternative fee arrangements and bid it out to a panel and even implemented reverse auctions. So successful with this program saved them 20% of their legal spend in just 1 year. So if Microsoft pulls this off, a little back of the napkin benchmarking calculations, I get them to $70 million in savings. So the stakes here are really high. Corporations have a lot at stake for getting to a new model, and the risks, if law firms can't get to a way to make it profitable are also really high. So we've got to start thinking about how to make this work. Unfortunately, the price tag in terms of overhead for getting these systems up, these initiatives up and running is really high. So still true today, most of the very sophisticated law firms and companies in the world who are really thinking through alternative fee arrangements are dealing with the task level data tracking. That is a key. The accruals, the project plans, the budgets, the RFPs on Excel spreadsheets. That's billions of dollars in spend being managed by manual processes. Well, we can do better than that, and we are doing better than that with DIGITORY Legal. All right, that's enough of me rambling about the market. This is a little bit about what we do, and then I will show you a video, give you a sense of how it looks when we do it. The most important thing to understand about DIGITORY Legal is that we are designed to be a win-win solution. We are not pitting one side against the other. And that comes from my own background, my own personal drive to do this. There is a lot of tension between lawyers and clients around bad communication over costs. And that problem was infinitely, in my opinion, infinitely solvable with better technology and more cost transparency. So we want everybody to be successful, law firms to make money, and law departments to serve the business objectives that they need with their cost arrangements. All right, so let's start with that data problem I mentioned. One of the core things that we are doing is wrangling this data issue. Taking historical billing data that is absolutely useless because it was collected at too high a level and was misallocated in the first place or block billed, and breaking it down into a framework that gives you task level benchmarks. So we can take your data and with our patent pending method, break it down and so that you can see not only how much the matter costs, but also how much did your patent inventor deposition cost and how many of them were in there. Task level benchmarks. And when you have that data, you can use it to refine future pricing arrangements. And that's the predictive budgeting. So budgets that are created at a task and timekeeper level from the ground up. And when you look at budgeting, in terms of scoping well and coming up with staffing plans, you get much more accurate numbers. And so we're solving the problem of actual to budget just being completely divergent. Request for proposals, that hasn't been released yet, but you'll see a taste of what it looks like in the video. Apples to apples bid comparison. So giving clients the opportunity to compare at a task level. So you have unit costs, how many interviews were included, how many gigabytes of documents are included, and what is my unit cost per. I focus a lot on unit costs because where we're trying to help people get to is a change order process, the same way that businesses work in other areas. You set a scope of work. It's going to be 5 patent inventors, 3 damages witnesses, and 3 third parties. And when it's 33 third parties, you don't fight about it. You make a change order. You do a math problem. And so the more scoping you do, the more thought you do in the fee arrangement process, the better that gets. And the more clients can compare apples to apples, the better that gets. The next element up there is automated accruals. And accruals is a huge pain point for clients, but it's not well understood. So I'm going to take a moment to explain what I mean by this. For a large corporation, on the accrual method of accounting, they have to account for costs when they are incurred, not when the bill hits their desk. So it doesn't really help them to get a bill 45 days later. They need to know how much that bill was going to be before they get it. And so what happens is legal operations will send a email spreadsheet on the first day of the month, tell me what your number is going to be for this month. On the 25th day of the month, on the 29th day of the month, they will manually check it, because if it's fat-fingered, they are responsible. And all of that emailing back and forth will happen manually, takes time, and then 85% of the time the numbers that they get are wrong. So what we're doing is making that process automatic and visual and accurate. So we're automating that accrual process. Project management, one of the toughest things for law firms to get their arms around. When we demo this product, thinking through the project management and who's going to do that is where law firms need to spend some time. And so what our product does is push all the tasks in the budget to dashboards so that timekeepers can see exactly what they are expected to do and for how long. And you can see how all of those tasks fit within the budget. If you do not think in terms of who's doing what and for how long and whether it was budgeted for, you are not going to succeed in a world of alternative fee arrangements. It's just that simple. And the other element that I don't think is often recognized is that when you're practicing law, something like this is happening. I had people standing outside my door at 1 in the morning going, I just got this assignment. I don't know how much time I should spend on it or you know, what my starting point is. If you can kind of pre-populate all of that guidance and then push down all of that time so that you're not having senior attorneys do it, you can have somebody lower level, you're going to save a lot of time. Benchmarking, we will aggregate and anonymize data. A lot of companies are doing that, and we haven't done that yet. Our data pool is not big enough, but that is in the plan. But we want to think about benchmarking and data in slightly different ways, because there are levers that drive costs and drive scope. For example, jurisdiction. What level of risk and exposure? That's what kind of complexity is this? So benchmarking a patent case isn't really good enough to give you that kind of predictive understanding of what your costs will be. We have knowledge management elements and a CRM. And we think about costs in terms of profitability. So we're going to be releasing very soon COGS modeling. So you put in your fully loaded costs for each timekeeper, and you can see whether this staffing model or this proposal is going to make money for you. You can switch out timekeepers to lower costs to the client, but increase profits to you. All right, I talked about that really, really quickly. Let's show you a little bit of what it looks like. And I'm going to attempt to narrate this. I learned a long time ago not to do live demos on other people's Wi-Fi, so I'm playing a video for you of the live system. So what you're looking at here is the Active Matters screen. The folders are created by the user. When you click on those 3 buttons, you can do a lot of things, including share the matter, or sync to one of our partners, in this case Clio, we are integrated with. Underneath the matters is templates, and the idea with templates is create roadmaps that you want to use as a starting point that you can copy and customize. I want to add 3 more interviews. I want to switch out my timekeepers. Take the process of mapping out these things down to minutes. When you're looking at an actual budget, we gather context, description, parties, things that will drive costs. And then you map out your budget with the staffing matrix. All of the individuals who will be in the budget are in there. You can replace timekeepers, so that's part of your modifying. They're all linked to the CRM. You can create teams, so if you have a client team with special rates, you can put it there. This framework that you see, L100, L110, L120, the L110, L120s, those are industry standard codes, but we break them down further because they're too high level. So you see here, you know how many interviews you're doing, you know how many documents you're reviewing, you know if you're doing other fact investigation work in this particular segment, and you can see what your weighted average billable rate is, or how many hours each timekeeper is spending on this particular section. And once you have that information, once the data is in there, you can start modeling out different scenarios that are more cost effective. So here we're switching out an associate for a contract lawyer doing the initial document discovery reviews and seeing how that makes it more cost effective to the client and yet doesn't hurt your quality of service. A little more about the framework you can see here. Depositions I talk a lot about. This is how data looks when it's in our system. This is how granular it is broken down. And I have a James Bond thing, as you can probably see. But you can see how much time Rosa Clabb spent each day on these particular tasks. And so it gives you a very good sense of who's doing what and for how long, and whether they're being efficient. This is a part of the accruals element that I talked about before. You can see costs over time visually. Each budget we create a report for that maps out at a high level who's doing what your weighted average billable rate and leverage is, but all of the assumptions. And this is the sort of thing you can drop into an engagement letter. We scoped out 4 conferences. We scoped out this percentage of time of strategic partner resources and this percentage of time of lower level resources. You can see the approved and draft state up there. Anything that is approved, you can start accruing time against. And this is a little bit of a preview of the RFP functionality that hasn't been released yet. But using that, you can compare different matters at a task level. So you can see what the timekeeper setup is, and then scope down to how many interviews and what's my cost per. So every unit cost can get mapped out there. This is my cheesy what people are saying about us slide. Everyone absolutely must have one, and I am no different. So we have integrated formally with Clio. We're one of their partners. Clio is the largest cloud-based law practice management platform. We have users at Fortune 500 companies and AmLaw 100 law firms. And we just released our enterprise level system that you saw a preview of today. So we are in the process of converting those to enterprise level customers, and we have had success doing that. We are one of the winners of, we were selected by a panel of legal tech experts and then by popular vote to be one of the startups in Startup Alley in the ABA Tech Show next week. So we'll be presenting in Chicago on Wednesday night. If anyone happens to be in town, come say hi. When I talk about our budgets being accurate, this is a little bit of what I mean. We are coming in around 2% in blind case studies. And that's what happens when you think through your scope and your staffing in the beginning. And we have been actually relied on in expert testimony by a renowned ethics expert. All right, so everyone needs a competition slide, I guess. So I consider this perceived competition because I hear a lot, don't e-billing systems have budgeting software? So we've talked to their users, and while you can put in actual to budget tracking in these solutions, they're not doing what we're doing. And we view ourselves as a complement to e-billing solutions and practice management solutions, as you can see by the integration with Clio, so that we help you do the parts that you need to move to a different place in the market.
It's really like a distinct category matter analytics, I would,
and all of the little pieces that we have that put together into one system of record, you might be able to parse out one versus the other in different competitors, but we have yet to see anything that puts it all together into one platform.
How come CounselLink isn't up there under e-billing, the Alexa software?
I ran out of room.
Oh, okay. But I mean, you would.
Yeah, I would
say-
put it
yeah,
there. I would put it there. They're just examples. They're more
representative.
yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So our revenue model, we're a cloud-based product. So it's a SaaS model, and the land and expand means land the client, expand to the law firms. So I've been in this industry long enough to know that clients are the ones driving change. So we are really focused on our marketing efforts on the Global 2000 because they bring with them the AmLaw 200 and hundreds of other smaller firms that are doing complex legal work. So that said, I've been very impressed by how many progressive law firms there are out there that are really trying to get on top of new billing and pricing proposals and are looking for solutions to help them do that. So we're partnering with them as well. Shout outs to the tech folks. Our front end runs on React.js. Our API is Ruby on Rails, and our data layer is Postgres. And thank you all very much for your time. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm a little bit confused about the target user. On one hand, it sounds like it's a great tool for like even a managing partner or the head of a group to assign different timekeepers and change things and like a dashboard for them. On the other hand, you're saying your target market is
the Global 2000.
The Global 2000. How do you bridge that? It's my
first
question. The other one, just to on the accruals part, I don't know how that when you present it as a tool for that helps people in this new world of alternative fee arrangements. How does I thought the accruals would only matter if you have the traditional billing. Hourly billing. So.
Yes. So let me start with your first question. So it is a collaborative tool, but so the way it works for the Global 2000 is it gives them, they can analyze their own data and create their own benchmarks and then get budgets and data from their law firms. So a large company, we can clean their data and create a template set for them. And then they get bids and budgets through their law firms. So you can use it internally and you can use it collaboratively. And if I go to one big corporation and they ask their law firms, then I have now sold to a large number of law firms. It's a little bit like the e-billing model. So you can use it internally or you can use it collaboratively. And if when the global companies use it, they can do it both ways. Does that make sense? And then the second part of your question is, you are exactly right on the accruals element. It does really matter more if you're dealing with hourly billing and you don't know what your number is going to be. The reality is that's going to be there for a while. And as the same companies that are experimenting with alternative fees and want benchmarks also have to live with the fact that they're not going to get them all right now, and they still have a huge pain point where their ops people are spending 25% of their time managing these spreadsheets. So it's that transition element, but that is an excellent point.
Okay, great. Other questions? Anyone? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not a lawyer, but I worked for Charles Schwab, and our department was the creative services department. So our clients were all over Schwab. So we implemented something similar called Workfront, and it was collaborative, but it was the same sort of thing. But I'm wondering if this is bringing up a new type of person job for the law firms, because our traffic managers, I don't know if they have traffic in law firms, but our traffic managers their job was somebody has to input all those tasks and fill it all out and put in all the templates and make the templates and say, Joe has to write the brief and Samantha has to do this. And so one interesting thing that happened is while we became more efficient, we also became more isolated because we only received our tasks from the internet, and we never talked to the people anymore. So, like, we didn't have to go ask the art director. We just received, do this. Have you experienced any of that?
So there are project managers who, in some law firms and on some matters, that populate, do this. The experience we've had is that the sort of base camp kind of, or asana kind of tools, nothing integrated to a budget.
Right.
You're in the practice of law, you will always have to talk to each other. You will always have analysis and strategy. You will always have to have weekly meetings, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to come up with the ideas that you need and get everybody on board with the strategy. I haven't seen it go to that degree, but the project managing is, and project management is new in law. It's just really, really getting started. So we'll see if that starts happening. But my gut is that just because of the nature of complex litigation, and that's really what I know and where we've been focused, is that you can't operate like that in order to achieve your goals from a winning perspective.
Maybe one more question, if there is one, because we're already a little bit over time. Anyone online? No?
Quick question, any integrations planned with any of the big e-billing players?
We're hoping, but we don't have any set plans yet. There's some that have formal integration programs, but many don't.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, Catherine, thank you so much. All the three of our speakers, I should say. And thank you so much for coming.
Oh, wait, we have a question from Joe Kessler.
Okay. What's the question?
Hold the line.
Okay. Joe, ask the question. You have to unmute yourself so we can hear you. Or you have to...
I thought I would...
There you are.
Sorry.
We can hear you.
Hey, Joe.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Hi, Catherine. My name is Joseph Kessler, and I'm at Blank Rome, which is an AmLaw 100 firm. Mm-hmm. And we tried for our pricing group to implement Umbria. Is that a service that you're familiar with?
Yes, that's the ProsperoWare Umbria that you saw in the competition slide that I completely glossed over.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware it had another name. Well, this is something that has been bedeviling us, and the implementation did not go well, and we abandoned it. So I think that I'll reach out to you. I think Roland included your contact information, but I think I'd like to discuss your offerings a little in more detail.
I would love that opportunity. Thank you so much.
What's your email?
CKROW at digitorylegal.com.
Very good.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this meeting. And yeah, don't forget, April 5th, Future Law.
Yay.
All right. See you
there.
next time. All right.